Hello, everyone, to our SIG release meeting. This meeting is being recorded, so please adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which basically means that be mindful of what you say and just be friendly to everyone else. We have a few guests on the call today. Most of them are already well known, but do we have anyone on the call who would like to introduce themselves for SIG release? And if this is not the case, then let's move over to our sub-project updates. So is anyone from release engineering here who would like to provide us an update about this sub-project?
I can give an update if no one else has anything. I know I saw here that Jeremy mentioned the another 1.18 patch. Adolfo, I think, was it you or Carlos who had commented that you had spoken with Steven and that was the plan?
I think it was Adolfo, and Adolfo has another meeting running concurrently right now.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I believe that is the case. Did you have a specific question?
No, we had removed it from the schedule already, so I was just curious if we were going to do it and how we were going to publicize that we were doing it. I got pinged by someone asking if we could include an issue. Let me grab the issue and drop it in chat just so we have it.
Yeah, I noticed, and I can let me grab the comment here that specified that we would do another patch here, but we definitely need to publicize that. I was under the impression we would potentially add that back to the schedule, but it doesn't look like that's happened. So I'll make sure to follow up and make sure that that is publicized here, because it's just right now it's just a comment on the PR that removed 1.18. Other than that, I'm not sure if there's any other critical updates that we won't cover in the next week's release engineering meeting.
Maybe one thing we can mention is that we have decided to use the mailing list a little bit more for official communication. And I think we all agreed on that we want to announce patch releases in the future on the SIG release mailing list as well as on the KDEV mailing list, which is kind of an improvement from my perspective. So thanks to Marco for taking the opportunity and writing up the email. I think we can send it out today or tomorrow. Anything else related to release engineering?
One small other thing. We will have an email going out about Release Manager Associate Program, kind of describing that and some of the responsibilities of that. If anyone on this call has any questions about that, I think most of the folks here are either already release managers, release manager associates, or are likely have other roles in the Kubernetes community and would not be interested in that role. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out and look for that email incoming.
All right, thanks. So let's go over to the next update from the release team. Is anyone from the release team here would like to provide us an update on that topic?
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone could hear me. We have gotten the shadow responses and the role sub-team role leads are working on it. And I have created a couple of bootstrapping PRs, and I will be working on creating the rest of them throughout this week. That's all the update. Anyone has any questions for the release team?
I would just add one more point. The part 2 of the retro will be today on the calendar. So if anybody is interested in attending the second part of the release retro, check the SIG release calendar. The invite went out yesterday, I think. It's at 11 PST. Taylor, can you correct me?
11 a.m. Yeah, not
Yeah,
Taylor,
yeah.
but answering for her.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that. I have to make sure that I am there for that. I feel a lot better today, so.
When does
Thank you,
the
everyone.
schedule? When does the schedule go up?
I think we were waiting
after we pass today's cap.
Yeah, I think we were waiting to thumbs up or thumbs down the plan and the cap before we finalize the schedule, because there obviously would be impacts to how long and when that would end.
All right, I think this brings us to the next topic, the release cadence cap. Yeah, from my point of view, the cap is mostly ready for approval, but Jeremy, do you want to give us a short summary about the current cap and what it describes and where we are?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen real quick just to bring up the table, and then we can walk through a couple of points. Come on, Zoom. I use WebEx at work now, so I forgot where the screen sharing button is on Zoom.
You're not doing your job if they don't make you find it, is what I found.
Okay, so notionally what the CAP is proposing is transitioning from, well, actually continuing the kind of 3 releases per year that we adopted in an ad hoc manner in 2020 in response to the ongoing pandemic and other things, but in a more structured manner. So in 2020, obviously the 119 release was quite elongated. The 118 release kind of was more traditional, and then the 120 release kind of split the difference between those. What we've landed on in this cap is providing some lightweight structure around building schedules out. So that structure or guidance includes releases should be around 15 weeks. Releases should have around 2 weeks between them. We should finish before mid-December for the last release of the year. And again, 3 releases would be the cadence for the year. We put together some notional timelines here. Obviously, these things could change based off of events, but this builds out what it might look like for 120 or for 2021 and what it might look like for 2022. We've incorporated feedback from Josh and Jordan in the most recent round of comments on the 2022 schedule to bring the release date back a little bit, landing at 14 weeks for that last release of 2022. But in general, what we end up with is pretty predictable timelines. So in each year, the first release of the year will be in April. The second release of the year will be in August, towards the beginning of August. And then the last release of the year will be towards the beginning, middle part of December. We've noted when KubeCons occur in here, just so people are aware. In the schedule, we also note that we will pause all release team activities for the week of KubeCon. We've done that for the last few releases, starting with 119, I believe. So we did that for 119 and 120. The cap will be an alpha for 122. And then we will focus really hard on communications during 122. For example, we're going to attend the first of the new community meetings that are kicking off this week on the 22nd, present this cap and the changes that people can expect at that meeting. Kind of tying back into the point Sasha mentioned earlier, we're going to lean really heavily into mailing list communications. So we're going to, as soon as this cap merges, we're going to prepare a nice formal write-up detailing all of the changes that will go out. And then as part of the cap existing in beta, it's a policy cap, but we're still trying to stick to those, the kind of graduation criterias. We're going to collect feedback in 122, 123, or sorry, 122, 123, 124, 125 to just gauge how this is going, and then make a formal decision about whether we revert or continue this going forward past 2022. We didn't want to make a change in the middle of 2022 just to make things consistent for people. Kind of the same reason that we didn't want to revert in 2021. We've kind of carried this 3 release cadence into the year so far. Don't want to change mid-year and kind of end up with funky timelines or big surprises for people. That, hey, suddenly we're back to 4, and then we would go back to 3 in 2022 if the cap was adopted. So that's kind of in broad strokes what the cap is proposing. Just summarizing again, formalizing the 3 releases per year that we've adopted in 2022, giving some structure and guidance to release calendar planning so that people have a better idea about when these will occur, and just general policy decisions around what the schedule should look like. Did I summarize that pretty well, Sasha, Lori?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? All right.
So now is the chance to raise some additional concerns that we can take some action items to follow up on.
The only one thing that I can see that's still missing from there is when do we do the evaluation on whether or not 3 releases a year is working for us?
Yeah, we created 2 follow-up issues, which are also now part of our SIG release North Star vision. And one of those points is the creating metrics around the cadence and also creating the survey. So since we did not agree on the exact point in time where we want to do the survey, which is probably the end of the year. Yeah, but this is now under evaluation and should be part of our overall vision. Yeah.
Oh wait, my last reading of the CAP, there was a survey that would go out with each release. Did that get removed?
I don't think so. So I think it would not probably make much sense to create a survey for every release for the next release and the release after the next release. But we have to create a plan how we get continuously feedback from the end users. Yeah.
Well, I'll attach it to a follow-up just because I can think of other things we could put into a per release survey, which would make it valuable beyond just checking this in particular. So I'll follow up on that. Yeah,
cool. Sounds great.
I'm dropping the 2 related issues into the chat, so anybody that missed them inside of the long scroll of the CAP.
We had mentioned at some point asking the CNCF to help us with the survey. Is that still on people's minds?
Yeah, I think so. I reached out to Contrib Experience and specifically Bob Killen and asked what kind of mechanisms do we have for conducting surveys right now? And I don't think there is a really solid answer for how individual SIGs would broadly survey the community. Like there are ways that we can reach out to contributors, but there aren't really great ways where we can reach out to contributors and end users. And I think really getting the end user feedback is important here. We're impacting both groups, right? Like this impacts developer velocity and contributors, but it also impacts all the downstreams and the end users.
Yeah.
Right,
The way we have.
Go ahead.
Contributor experience survey dude here, actually. So the way that we have to reach end users is we actually ask the CNCF, and then this would be a survey we could only do one time, right? We can't do this with every release. We ask the CNCF to use their PR mechanisms to advertise the survey.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the best that we can do in terms of help from them. The other thing that we can do from our own community is obviously to reach out to the various vendors and ask them to ping their end users if they're available for it.
But CNCF has the possibility to ping the whole end user community at one time, right?
Yeah, the CNCF end user community, right.
Yeah, so I guess it would make most sense and be faster if we just did it through that network they've got. What do you think?
Yeah, so that would be a one-time thing and would be important to pin down a couple months ahead of time at least.
Yeah.
We'll need to coordinate with them. Among other things, they won't do it if they're doing a big publicity push around something else.
Oh, right. So I mean, what I would think would be to save that survey for the end of the year, but if they have those other conflicting interests, maybe we need to plan.
We need to make our decision at least we'd want to make our decision at least 2 or 3 months before the end of 2022.
Yeah.
Because if we were to decide to revert, then we'd want to know that well in advance of recruiting a team for that release. So and also, again, for the sake of the vendors, they're going to want to know well in advance. So we'd really be looking at, technically we'd be looking at something around like August of 2022. And the problem there in terms of getting the CNCF's help with it would be KubeCon stuff. which is, I will tell you, you cannot get anything out of CNCF-PR in the month leading up to a KubeCon.
Yeah, I think that with all of the timings and things that have to happen, it would probably need to happen during the second release of the year. Send that feedback out, send the survey out, collect that feedback. And then we can make the decision as we head into the third release of the year, which will start in August. So having that feedback collected up to that point, I think would be the ideal state. And then we can use that time to determine what's the plan for 2023 going forward.
When does the CNCF's KubeCon kickstart over the summertime? Like, is it July or August?
In terms of when do they become obsessed with KubeCon?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's starting about a month out. So KubeCon fall, it depends on when KubeCon fall is in 2022, which I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I tried to get that date too, and I could not find a lockdown version of that date.
Yeah.
It's not public.
Yeah.
But probably August-ish would be still doable for the survey.
Yeah.
And then at least, because it feels like October, November is when they do it. So.
Okay, do we have anything else related to the cadence cap? Any concerns, questions? Because if not, then I would like to kindly ask for approval again from everyone who's in the approvals list of this cap. I already approved it, and I saw that Tim's also approved it, and we are still missing some approvals from a couple of other SIGs probably. So, yeah.
Hey Sasha, this is Derek. I was waiting until this meeting because I thought this was where the topic was going to be concluded. So given the discussion here, I will add for node and architecture as well.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and if we don't have anything else related to the cadence cap, then we can go over to the next topic, which is policy needs. I think this was from Laurie, right?
Yeah, and I don't have a big discussion plan because I wasn't sure we'd have time to get to it, but I think it provides another good segue in that we learned a lot from this cadence cap experience, and we vow to be more open and transparent, collaborative about all of our policy and process related efforts, because just know that it goes better when we do that. So with that in mind, this list is of policy needs that we've been looking at for quite some time. And I think we could actually, with this group, prioritize, get some feedback around what are the priority items on this list, so that as we head into 122, we can spend our time tackling the highest impact, highest need topics. Does that sound like a good plan for everybody? All right, so I guess we just pop up the document. Someone want to do that? I don't have it open at the moment. I was multitasking a little bit, but I can do that if you want.
Yeah, maybe you can provide us a short overview about. I'm just wondering if we want to put those efforts also into the North Star vision, but yeah, we probably can.
Well, I guess that question can come up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I will share my screen. So I think this is an exhaustive list. I don't think I missed anything, but the release engineering project board still has quite a bit of items in it, so there might be something missing, but in any case, we have enough to get started and have a good discussion here. So the release cadence cap is on its way. So I think we crossed that one out. Then we have these items. The first one is how to build and ship artifacts of things when the source code is not within Kubernetes for things that are getting split out of KK. So this is based on, right. So if we jump down to the bottom, this is where this conversation left off. The idea here was providing an outline and offering specific guidance on how to build and ship artifacts of things from the source code is not within KK for things that are getting split up. So that became the action item. Do we agree that that is the goal, or is there a different way to phrase this goal that speaks more to the need? Do this again. I mean, one other way to ask this question is that when this issue was filed in 2019, what is the core related issue today? I don't think, yeah, there hasn't been any activity on this specific question. It's primarily about kubeadm, but the policy here would be general.
Yeah, I have to agree with Josh's comment. This is probably nothing we can move forward from this SIG release perspective right now. We can raise the questions for sure, yeah. But...
Okay, so I did ask this question recently in SIG release, and the idea here is that SIG release needs to provide the guidance for this kind of question. When you're building and shipping artifacts of things, when the source code isn't in KK, how do you split those things out of Kubernetes? What is the policy, the guidance for groups that we want to offer?
Okay, so just a question of how do the artifacts get built?
Exactly.
Okay.
If we can.
Do we actually have any mechanisms for that now, or is this something we need to implement?
Yeah, I guess the idea is to provide the frame around how artifacts which do not live in KK can be built from a Kubernetes perspective. So where should they host it? How should they be built and things like that? So for example, for CI tools, we right now cut the release on the CI tools repository, and then we use the GitHub to GCS tool to upload the artifacts to the bucket. And maybe that's a good starting point to elaborate how we could achieve something like this if kubeadm is out of 3.
I missed that, Sasha. Can you repeat it? Because I was...
Yeah, we have a very lightweight process around how we can host artifacts on our Kubernetes release bucket, which are built from a different repository. And right now, I think only CI tools is using it.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be a starting point. How, if we assume that kubeadm is not part of KK anymore, then we draft a policy or outline a policy how the maintainers of kubeadm can put their release artifacts into the Kubernetes release bucket.
I think, but this is only assumption, is that the biggest problem around that would be how kubeadm would push their deb and RPM packages, because this is what we still depend on from Google. And the question is, will kubeadm continue to follow the Kubernetes release policy? Is it still going to be the same release cadence and the same release versions? So it probably depends on that as well.
Yeah,
I guess all that requires reaching out to SIG cluster lifecycle and seeing with them what is the status and how are we going to proceed.
So that's a first step, maybe pinging them on this issue to see what's our introductory question or major ask other than how to proceed. What do we need to know from them?
I guess the first step would be to know the status. Are they proceeding with it? Because that issue has been like not so active for a while. So we still need to check with them, are they interested and how hard they want to push for it. And what is their priorities regarding that? If they want to go with it soon, I guess we can probably see how we can collaborate them with on CAP and such stuff.
Cool. Do you think that that's a sufficient introductory to like making the next step of progress on this topic? If so, we can move to the next one. We're not going to solve all of these today, obviously. The idea is, in my mind at least, we just surface these topics and see what we can do next to get them going forward.
Yeah, I would guess this is good enough for now because as Josh said as well, not so much that we can do from the SIG release perspective besides providing guidance, and it depends on how they want to go with it. So nothing we can do from that for now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, so we can't really prioritize this either until we get more info. And to Sasha's point, yeah, this is basically walking the board. It's just a policy edition. All right. Moving on to the next one, draft a policy for updating Go versions across Kubernetes code base and infra. This is also about cadence and timing.
Question about that one. Is there anything we can actually do about it? Because I think that we have some brief discussions of that earlier, and the process is mostly like ad hoc on the need basis. We check when the Go release is going out, then we see where we need to update it. Depend of is there some CVs or something like that. What about release branches? So it is like depending. Not sure is there some cadence that Go team is following, but I also think that they don't have something specific, so I'm not sure. I think that there is some guidance on how to update the Go versions. If I remember correctly, Steven created some templates in the SIG release repository that are actively being used now as well. Not sure how much is that up to date, but I think that it is in a fairly good shape. But know that I haven't really done the Go update so far, so I could be missing a lot of context.
Yeah, also with respect to the patch releases. So right now we don't bump Go versions on patch releases, so we don't bump minor Go versions on patch releases, but sometimes we update them to the patch releases of the Go versions for the patch releases of KK. And I think a lightweight policy around that would be helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe some document in case SIG release or something like that to just describe when we want and in what cases we update which Go version, like when we upgrade patch releases, minor releases, and so on.
Yeah, and documenting which container images are related to building releases because they follow Go versions as well. So yeah, I see a documentation need.
I don't know if I got everything. Tell me if I missed some aspect of that.
Seems fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who else would we need to involve in this discussion? Are there other stakeholders, and who would they be?
maybe SIG testing.
Okay.
But in general, I think SIG release and release engineering should be enough, but SIG testing probably, yeah.
Okay. No reason for architecture.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah.
What would the news be for them? What would be our message for them?
Probably raising the question if there are any restrictions around Go versions and Kubernetes we have to consider from a release engineering perspective, rather than keeping it up to date.
One idea from my side, what about SIG security for the information about the CVs and how those are important to be included?
Yeah, I agree.
Should we reach out to the Go team? There was a thread with them, the SIG release leads. Should we ask them this question? Is it necessary to do so?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Marco raised it. Marco, what did you have in mind?
Nothing else. This is fine.
Okay, so good to know, but not a blocker. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, it is, I think.
Okay. And then should we check to make sure the templates are updated? Or do we think that they are? Or do we know that they are? Maybe someone here already knows.
I'm not really sure.
Anyone else?
Maybe we can ask Carlos offline because he has been doing the Go updates recently.
That's what I thought too. Okay. All right. What would be our first step here? Do we have any obvious first step?
I guess a possible first step would be that someone starts drafting the document, that we come up with some initial skeleton or something like that. We review it, share with other SIGs that we mentioned above, and see how we can iterate on it.
Okay, that's easy. I can do that if I have the key sections. If you just provide the key sections, then I can do that. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, I guess we can do it async. We don't need to do it on the meeting, or
That's
you
right.
would prefer
Yes.
to do it now?
No, it's okay. Cool. And if we don't do this, what bad things happen? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, so there's the risk that we don't have documentation around updating Golang releases, and the people who did this in the past are not available anymore. So we probably miss a Go release or a Go update or a CD.
It's a pretty compelling reason. So maybe that means that this will rise higher to the priority list. I think Carlos is the only person doing that updates, or is there someone else?
I think Steven did it in the past as well.
Right. Yeah. So that's
I've done some of them.
Oh, okay.
And was this? Sorry, I just joined fully, so I was trying to assess. Is this the part of the Go templates?
Yes.
Yeah, there are some issue templates for doing that. They could use a little bit more work because I tried following one of them. Well, what was missing really was the documentation, and so just following the template blindly, I got into a pitfall, and Carlos had to fix it. But I think one of the manuals has now fixed. Has now merged. So probably it would be better if first following the documentation, then the issue template.
Yeah, that's right. I now remember there's two aspects of this, the template and the policy doc itself. And I think both are, well, the templates are in progress. The documentation wasn't started. So I think we're just talking about getting this started, but obviously it's dependent on these being updated. So in any case, I think we have a little work plan here, what we need to do to get this going, which is +1. Should we move on to the next topic? Okay, this one's been around a while as well. So the release cadence, a lot of cadence questions, out of tree features. And I know that this has come up over the past year as being super important, but it's like kind of a big issue that might require a lot of conversation and discussion. So
one question about that one, and I think it is somewhat recapped as the first point. How much do we want to care about something that is out of tree, like not in KK or something like that, and that is not owned by SIG release? Is there something we need to do about it beside relatively relevant to the first issue we discussed about KubeADM, that we provide guidance about how they can publish their stuff to buckets and so on? Maybe I am missing something, but I'm not sure.
yeah, that's a great question. Is this something that we want to own or should own? Looks like we talked about it in 2019. Then it went to the PM, which no longer exists. And I think that's where it's came up in the context of KubeADM.
Yeah, I think both topics relate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, here's my sad question from last May. What do we do? That's what I do a lot. Should this actually be handled in the enhancements policy discussions? Sorry, Marco.
Like, I wanted to say,
sorry, go ahead. No, that's fine.
I wanted to say that once we solve the KubeADM issue, or which one, the comes the first, then we probably solve the other issue as well. So in case if we have the KubeADM team to come up with some policies and so on, a part of this one will be solved as well, and different way applies as well.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that we should actually try to engage those folks this cycle with the idea of like getting rid of some of these old questions through their example? Yeah, no. Just on the face of this and seeing all this conversation over the years, what do you think now is our best first step? Maybe if you need more time to actually read the issue and go over it, then that's fine too. But if you're familiar with this one because you've looked at it, what do you think is a good step here to take?
Yeah, I guess some time to go through it would be useful.
What do we think about looking at the discussion, and then for a next follow-up meeting, we have identified the core issue here, like from all of the conversation, what is actually being requested? Specifically from this group. Is that a yes, or that was a question?
I think I agree with Marco that this really ties back to the question around the KubeADM issue. And once we define some lightweight policies around like how people ship artifacts and deliver things, I think that really will drive it will answer more questions, or maybe open more questions for how we track those out of tree things. But I think what we have now with the label of things being tracked out of tree is probably sufficient to give people the idea of where to look for these things and who to go see. Because they aren't tied directly to the bits of the release itself. So they're kind of out of the purview of the release team itself.
So then it's just basically shipping the artifacts, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, there were other things in there too, like how do we tie these things back to test grid and et cetera. But like, those things I don't think are really release team specific. There's probably a whole lot of other things that maybe come down to enhancements tracking. But again, the enhancements tracking is really tied to the release. So I think let's solve that KubeADM issue first. Freeze this one for now, come back to it once we've resolved or defined something for the KubeADM issue, and then we can peel off the layers of the onion on the other one.
Seems like a good approach. What does everyone else think? Anyone want to add, or? I guess we're also out of time, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the right approach.
Nice. All right, so we made some progress today.
Thank you everyone for joining, and thanks Joseph for taking notes. So if you have any questions around the CAP, the release cadence CAP, so then just reach out via Slack, and enjoy the rest of the day and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.